Asia, over 1 billion people have no access to electricity. Most of these are the rural poor, living far from the nearest mains power supply. A lack of energy places tight limits on education and on livelihoods. These people live off the grid. So off-grid solutions are an ideal way to bring electricity to Asia's poorest communities. In this week's programme, we look at promising new developments that get power to people in the farms and villages. We report on 6 thriving projects supported by development assistance agencies. Diwali, the Hindu celebration of the victory of light over darkness. In electrical terms, this is a battle that continues across the land, with India's power industry struggling to meet ever-growing demand. Supplying electricity to rural areas is often costly and inefficient. Now an innovative power plant has shown that locally produced electricity can power up the countryside and lighten the load on the environment.
We generate jobs and we generate electricity locally through a renewable energy source.
The privately owned Malavali biomass plant in rural Karnataka makes money from rubbish by generating electricity from sugarcane waste and coconut fronds. India produces around 250 million tonnes of sugarcane a year, and after harvesting the profitable stem, 30 million tonnes of waste is left to burn.
For any purpose it was not using. Now it is very useful for us. We are getting money and we are getting power, quality power.
Some 400 workers supply the plant with the 140 tonnes of waste it needs every day. At the plant, the waste is chopped to size and conveyed to the boiler for combustion. Higher density, slower burning fuel like eucalyptus is added to create a more even burn. The heat this generates makes steam which drives the turbine to generate electricity. This is sold back to the national grid and transmitted to a nearby substation for feeding to the community. Throughout the process, waste and pollution are minimised. The carbon dioxide produced by a biomass plant is absorbed by the next crop of sugarcane, making it carbon neutral. The ash residue is useful too. High in alkaline, it's composted at a nearby silo and turned into organic fertiliser. This is packed and shipped back to the farmers, 100 kilograms in return for each metric tonne of biomass fuel supplied. Access to reliable power and more of it has a dramatic effect on local industry, including this rice mill.
Voltage used to be a problem. There used to be power losses and we used to get power for only 6 hours. We had to use the generator, which cost double the money. It wasn't working out. Now, since we got the new power, we are at peace. I had 1 rice mill before. Since getting a better power facility, I've got 3 mills. People are getting jobs.
A non-profit organisation, Gramina Abhivrudhi Mandali, or GAM, is run like a local council. Subcontracted to the Central State Distribution Utility, GAM trains locals in maintenance and monitoring of the power supply in 47 villages. Putting service centres closer to the customer has made paying cheaper and easier.
Before, we used to spend 12 to 15 rupees travelling to pay the bill, and it used to take a whole day. Now my husband bikes to pay the bill and is home within an hour.
If Malavali's success was replicated across India, it could mean 100 billion extra kilowatt hours of electricity a year, enough for 200,000 rural villages with few environmental side effects.
We want to see this GAM as well as Marwali power plant as a model of India.
Winning this race in the Tibetan highlands would once have made you king for a year. This century, the prize is solar power rather than political power, about enough of it to light your home and work a radio or television. With 40,000 solar home systems already bought in this region and another 1 million expected by 2007, the solar market is gathering pace. The Chinese Rural Energy Development Project aims to help make using solar power an everyday event, a market race for consumers, which also raises industry standards. 60 million people live here. The vast distances between them means many don't have access to the national electricity grid. Using solar power is an increasingly common choice. The chance to watch television and listen to the radio are two strong incentives to go solar. A small solar home system costs around $60 and generates 10 watts. With few credit schemes available, buying these is nearly always a cash transaction. Storekeepers compete for business, and with solar PV components making up 30% of sales here in the Gansu province, business is good and getting better. A grant from the China Renewable Energy Development Project gives manufacturers $1.50 for every watt of solar power sold. From 17 companies in 1996, there are now around 30 accredited companies making solar goods. Like other household products, the solar home systems come with a guarantee from the shop owner to encourage purchase. That means quality standards have to be set in the manufacturing stage. 25 factories make parts for or assemble solar home systems in China. The parts manufacturers check their components before shipping them to the assemblers. And as the market expands, the standards rise. Export of solar home systems and solar panels is now a boom industry in China. To meet demand, international standards are being adopted across the country. The prize for Asia's largest single solar installation goes to Beijing's National Solar Laboratory. This panel produces enough electricity to power around 20,000 televisions. Targeting the consumer has improved production standards and led to the wider application of solar products in China. It's an increasingly competitive industry that's keeping an eye on the prize, a growing market for clean, cheap power. 3/4 of Sri Lanka's population live in rural areas. Almost half the country has no access to electricity. Decentralised alternatives, wind, solar and micro-hydro schemes used to be restricted to pilot projects, but now a new power structure backed by international finance and the World Bank is revolutionising access and proving these alternatives are a cost-effective way to electrify rural communities.
At the beginning, no one believed that microhydro can be used for rural electrification. We had a struggle to, convince people, all people concerned. But now everybody knows that microhydro is one of the famous subjects in electrification.
Using water for power is centuries old. Today people think of large-scale dams for generating electricity, but there is another way. Micro-hydros don't store water, but use a river's natural course to make power and minimise environmental impact. Intermediate Technology Development Group, ITDG, saw that Sri Lanka has perfect conditions for microhydro. They decided to work with communities to test its viability.
The simpleness of the technology that can be handled by the rural communities is the first reason why we have selected microhydro.
Katipola is one of the earliest microhydro pilot sites developed by ITDG. Set up in 1995 with the help of the Janasavia Trust Fund and the villagers themselves, it uses a simple technique to power 116 households. Water is diverted from a local stream and dropped into the penstock or pipe. The momentum creates pressure, and mechanical energy drives the turbine and converts it into electricity. It's then transmitted to village households. Realising that technology without user support was doomed, ITDG and the villagers set up an electrical consumer society to maintain the site and collect tariffs.
The success of the project depends on the Electrical Consumer Society. The main responsibility is the treasurer's, as he deals with the money.
Once a month, the treasurer of the Electricity Consumer Society comes to collect what I owe, based on the rate of 100 rupees a day for the days I've used power for work purposes.
The lower costs and higher rewards of bringing power to the people won them over to the scheme. The pilot's success in mobilising community finance and winning support convinced the World Bank to fund the Energy Services Delivery Project. This would set up 56 off-grid micro-hydro power plants to bring electricity to 2,800 households across Sri Lanka. Funds from the World Bank were channelled to Sri Lanka's DFCC Bank. Money could then be drawn down by local commercial banks and institutions.
Each stakeholder has a specific role to play, so that brings all together and the systems to work.
Though more local training is needed, microhydro is now seen as a realistic option for many more poor communities who otherwise would have no hope of access to electricity.
ITTG did a feasibility study, the potential, to identify the potential of microhydro in Sri Lanka. We have identified 1,000 such sites total. So that means more than 800 to go.
17 hours by boat from the bright lights of the Bangladeshi capital, Dhaka, lies Char Montaz, one of a cluster of small islands off the southern tip of Bangladesh. It's 4 hours boat ride from the nearest electrical grid and will probably never have a conventional electricity supply. The island has become the focus for a multi-funded renewable energy project that's not only bringing light, but training poorly educated women to become solar electrical engineers. For rural women in Bangladesh, daily life means domestic chores and collecting water. But these 35 women on Char Montaz Island are dab hands with power drills, pliers and soldering irons.
My role is, the first role is to train them. The women working over here were trained by me. And in other islands also, I used to provide technical training, especially electronics and solar. The women of this area, almost all of them are not educated, but very often I found them resourceful. They have some talents inside.
Tawheed is visiting a neighbouring island where another group of women is being trained.
I have got 10 students here, all women. Today I will teach them about the components which are used in a solar home system. Ampere, Nahulo, Adre, they had no practical training earlier, so and this soldering is very much hot, so they are afraid of this device to use. I think it will take another 2 months. I hope they will be trained completely. Yes, they say that surely they will do it after learning the whole course.
Back in Char Montaz, Tawheed's fully trained electrical engineers have formed a cooperative and are assembling delicate component parts for home solar lighting kits. The kits are selling well in local markets as well as in Dhaka. Their workshop is powered entirely by solar energy, and there's enough power from these rooftop solar panels for them to expand their business by providing a much-needed battery recharging service. In the past, people made a costly and time-consuming boat trip. Customers can also drop into the Women's Cooperative to buy a home solar lighting kit. Once he's agreed to buy, this customer is taken through the various payment options before handing over his deposit.
I have decided to purchase a home solar kit because it gives better light. I don't like the kerosene lamp because it makes the house dirty, but this solar lamp will make it easier for my children to study at night.
Since the project started 2 years ago, the women have sold almost 300 home solar kits to the 5 islands covered by the cooperative. Several businesses and households in Char Montaz now enjoy solar lighting. Runa Khan is a cooperative graduate by day and a seamstress by night. Naturally, her home is powered by solar energy.
Before we had this solar lamp, we couldn't see at night, but now I can use my sewing machine and the children can read and our house is safe because the kerosene lamps cause so many accidents. Also, I can work all through the night, which increases my income.
Runa and her friend Shahida have recently returned from America. They'd been invited to a trade fair to demonstrate their solar lamps and skills.
Myself and my husband want our children to be better educated, and they should go to university, visit America like I did, and then they will have a better life and better home.
Their husbands, they were actually not in favor of this project, but now they are supporting them because now they understand, their outlook changed, they understand that the women, they should know something, they should do something.
Women's empowerment is a very important thing in Bangladesh. Women are a neglected majority in the country, and bringing economic opportunity to women is hugely important for Bangladesh's future. So women's empowerment was very much at the heart of this, and we're really delighted that it's taken off so well.
Thanks to these empowered women, the stored energy of the setting sun over Char Montaz Island is lighting up the lives of a remote corner of Bangladesh. In Sri Lanka, solar power is also taking off. Sarvodaya Economic Enterprise Development Services, SEEDS, sprung from the Sarvodaya Shramadana movement, Sri Lanka's largest non-government organisation. Since 1986, SEEDS has used door-to-door banking to reach people who'd otherwise have no access to credit. And from the beginning, one of the most popular funding requests has been loans for solar home systems. Set up in 1997, Sri Lanka's Energy Services Delivery Project noted the demand for solar home systems and made loans to conventional banks to try to stimulate the market for renewable energy. But many banks felt the loans were too small to merit the administration, and rural clients were unwilling or unable to travel to bank premises. Then in 2001, SEEDS took over the job of handling the money. So how does it work? A solar salesperson visits possible customers and, if they're all convinced, helps them fill out an application for a loan. On their next visit, the salesperson introduces the customer to a SEEDS field officer who assesses their credit risk. Sisira Kumara is to become one of 33,000 people granted a SEEDS loan. He'll find repayment costs are offset by money saved on kerosene and batteries. SEEDS charges 10% interest compared to a commercial bank's 16 or so. Once the loan is approved, installation is straightforward. The solar home system is ready to work, generating a current from energy absorbed from sunlight. This can be used instantly or stored in the battery for night use. Basic maintenance know-how is passed on to the client, but service doesn't stop here. The team provides after-sales service for 2 years, but with long-lasting parts they rarely have to visit. The battery lasts for 5 years and panel for 20.
So it's a win-win situation, because if the companies provide good service, good marketing, it's good for SEEDS and also to the community. Same way the companies will benefit if we have a good loan products, services, so on.
It really is win-win. The loan scheme minimises the risks of small-scale lending, and satisfied customers help build solar power's growing popularity.
It's a very safe energy source. We know that in Sri Lanka there are so many accidents and deaths due to like unprotected kerosene lamps. So all these things can be avoided by using the solar energy.
We come here because it's easy for us to study because there's light here.
It helps my father's industry. And we can watch TV and we can read, and that's good for our day-to-day life.
As well as fuel savings, solar power helps meet SEED's mandate of lifting poverty by generating new incomes for small and large-scale ventures. 4 other institutions now use the microfinancing format, with government plans to triple Sri Lanka's solar home systems by 2007. The sky's wide open for solar power.
With people's participation and willingness, we want to build something, not micro, we want to building something mega.
India is home to over 15% of the world's population, but accounts for just 3.8% of global energy consumption. The country's development and the industries driving it are hungry for energy, and demand is rapidly rising.
Now India is slowly developing, and if there is a demand for power now, the demand is likely to grow in future.
Fossil fuel power stations are polluting and fuel prices rising, so the government is using incentives to encourage private investment in wind power schemes. This rice processing factory was using 10,000 to 12,000 rupees worth of diesel oil every day. But wind farms mean reliable rural electricity, and the company's now switching over from diesel to the national grid.
The diesel rate has been going up gradually. Now it is 28 rupees per litre. Being a rural area, they used to cut power at 6 to 8 hours per day. So there was power fluctuation also was there, and there was a problem in voltage. And now we are getting better power for the past 6 to 8 months, and that is the reason we are switching.
Wind farms in the Muppandal area of Tamil Nadu have 2,500 turbines that generate 900 megawatts in total. Wind power is attracting private investment thanks to tax breaks and soft loans offered by the Indian Renewable Energy Development Agency and supported by the World Bank. Turbine manufacturer Vestas has a factory in Chennai building the turbines to meet demand from private companies.
In Tamil Nadu, we have cuts in the power, and therefore each industrialist is owning diesel sets. And as the diesel price is increasing, the wind sector becomes more and more attractive. This entire wind installations which have been installed in Tamil Nadu, 95% is owned by the private sector and only 5%, even less than 5%, by the government.
The windmills of Tamil Nadu benefit from reliable winds, but it's the favourable economic as well as environmental conditions that are causing wind power to take off.
If wind is good and the regulations are good, the industry is prospering very well.